women's organisation. So, I remember the moment when the decision of the Supreme Court was uttered, announced, that the terms man and woman in the Equality Act mean sex and not gender identity. Clarifying the law was an incredible achievement. I remember the cheer, the celebration, headlines that trans women are not women, and the Sun, with its own inimitable style, did the best headline, which was "The Joy of Sex," with Marion Halfon standing there celebrating. Just a wonderful moment. Women of Scotland gave us a huge gift. They gave us hope. Women were vindicated. After years of hard work, starting around kitchen tables, and I don't know, but I'm sure there were lots of WhatsApp groups. And as Maya stated yesterday, the outcome of years of patient work, visionary courage, and sheer bloody-mindedness by Trina Budge, Marion Calder and Susan Smith of For Women Scotland. Plus so many other men and women supporting, and there was a certain fairy godmother called J.K. Rowling, who was this extraordinary presence, kind of holding and inspiring. They started with FOIs and began to uncover how we had come to such a terrible place. They found where the poison was at the heart of the institutions. The reaction was seismic and our hearts lifted. Then there was the howl of indignant rage, a refusal to obey the highest court of the land, resulting in lawlessness. Organisations commiserated with the poor oppressed. My own professional organisation, BACP, as a therapy organisation, said, "We offer our support to the TNBGQ community, not just at this incredibly difficult time, but to let you know that we stand alongside you always." Throwing women and children under the bus. The streets were filled with rage, demands and obscene displays of hatred. Dennis Kavanagh, and I've asked his permission if I can use this tweet that he did afterwards, summed it up in his kind of humorous way as well. The BBC Guide to governing and reporting any aspect of the Supreme Court ruling. Number 1, locate transvestite, get them to say they're sad. Get a woman on and tell her she's made the transvestite sad. Tell the woman she's bad for making the transvestite sad. Completely ignore lesbian and gay aspect of the ruling. Science say it's a toxic and complex issue. Hand over to the BBC LGBTQLOL unit to do a massive sad piece on transvestites. So any woman interviewed somehow had to do a sacrament of confession. And although in a way, I don't mean to make light of it, because it's incredibly destructive, because what has happened since, it touches on the truth at the heart of this. A few organisations got on and made sure it kind of happened, but mostly it was a big, fat silence. As Bethany Hutchinson at the Battle of Ideas North said, it was a decision to delay, to be silent. They avoided and denied and defied something that is simple and obvious about women's dignity and safety. That was seen as disposable. Safeguarding irrelevant. Biological reality unspeakable. The fabric of reality torn. This props up and is an engine fueling the lie that with hormones and surgery, or just a belief in your inner identity, you can magically change sex. People are still having to go to court. The grueling punishment of long cases lasting years, but we've seen many brilliant men and women, even in this lonely struggle, remain victorious. So we're having the protest today because there still is silence, they are still prevaricating, they're still not getting this guidance out. So we have got protests today in Cardiff, in Big London, Edinburgh, Belfast, Plymouth, here of course, Sunderland, where Bridget Phillipson's invited, and they will be doing a minute's silence to kind of indicate her silence. I think they're doing a cardboard cutout interview with her as well. And then our brothers and sisters in Berlin, Dusseldorf, Paris and Vienna. So big shout out to them all. Women will tell stories about how the government is failing, and this is leading to harm in day-to-day lives. So let me, without further ado, introduce the first speaker, who is Charlotte Cordon. Cudden, sorry. Good start. Great speaker, person I am. Charlotte is a former DCI in Greater Manchester and the Met. She's co-chair at LGB Alliance Business Forum and member of Women's Rights Network. She set up and chaired Police Scene Network with other officers when she was with the police. So I will hand over to Charlotte.
Can you just click that to yourself? We'll get the sound back. So just hold that.
Hello.
Oh yeah, close. Get really close to the mic.
How's that? Okay. Speak up even louder? Yeah? Okay. So, thanks to 199 Days Later Grassroots Collective for organising these incredible events across the UK and across Europe. I am not speaking on behalf of any organisation today. Thanks to For Women Scotland for taking the fight for women's rights to the Supreme Court and winning. And as a former police officer in GMP and the Met, I'm here to tell you what went wrong in policing and why Chief Constables refused to welcome the Supreme Judgment last year. That judgment confirmed what we knew all along, that a woman is an adult human female. So what did go wrong? In short, it was the combined efforts of Stonewall and the National Police LGBTQIA+ network, which is now led by Chief Constable Vanessa Jardine of Northumbria Police. So let's take a look at Exhibit Reference CC1. This is the trans guidance for the policing sector that was published in 2018. This was the beginning of the prioritisation of gender ideology over sex in policing. And here's an example from that guidance. Individuals who identify as gender fluid may require 2 warrant cards to reflect their gender on different days. Indeed. So who endorsed that? This was endorsed by the National Police Chiefs Council, the National LGBT Police Network, the Police Federation, and of course, that great union, Unison. Trans guidance for the policing sector is a safeguarding failure for women, children, and LGBT people. One of Chief Constable Jardine's first priorities as National LGBTQ lead was to enable male police officers who identified as women and lesbians to strip search vulnerable women in custody. Chief Constable Jardine attended the National Police Chiefs Council in December 2021 to ask all the other Chief Constables to allow men who say they are women to be permitted to strip search vulnerable women in custody, which is against PACE. This is illegal. How many of those 46 Chief Constables at that meeting in December 21 agreed with her? All of them. When this policy was agreed, the Women's Rights Network challenged it because they knew, as I knew, that it was completely unlawful. And respect to Kathy Larkman for raising the red flag on this safeguarding failure. So, what needs to happen to put these things right? The first thing that needs to happen is that chief constables need to apologise to women instead of apologising to Peter Tatchell for not applying the Equality Act correctly over the past 10 years. For the College of Policing to buy in unbiased training on Equality Act, the GRA and the Workplace Health and Safety Regulations 1992, which is about changing rooms, and police women and police staff need their own separate single-sex spaces. For anyone in the police worried about unlawful workplace policies or wanting to have their gender-critical beliefs upheld, consider joining at Police Scene UK. And for any LGB police employees worried about their rights to be same-sex attracted, consider joining LGB Alliance. I would highly recommend that. And finally, a massive thanks to Fair Cop, Harry Miller, Sarah Phillimore, Lindsay Smith, the Free Speech Union, WRN and LGB Alliance for continuing to hold the police to account. Thank you.
That was excellent.
Thank you, Charlotte. Can everybody hear? Okay, so we have to get very close to the microphone. Thanks, Charlotte. That was extraordinary. Still shocks me when I hear these things. It's still shocking. Louise Morris has been a school teacher for 8 years, and prior to that, she was working in commerce internationally. She's a proud mother of 2, a grown-up son, and a teenage daughter, and a staunch defender of the rights of women and girls.
Taller. Ooh. Thank you everyone for coming this afternoon. Okay. Right. Is that better? I'm a bit taller.
Almost got to touch it, please.
Right, okay. Thank you.
Is that all right?
Yeah.
Is that higher?
Okay, so this Thursday marks 1 year since the Supreme Court ruling, as we all know. It reaffirmed the importance of single-sex spaces. It's an opportunity for us to reflect on why privacy and dignity matter so deeply for children, and for teenage girls in particular. I'm a woman, a mother of a teenage daughter, and a teacher. As a woman, I remember what it felt like to be a teenage girl. Puberty is a confusing time when your confidence lags behind the changes happening to your body. You become acutely aware of your own vulnerability. You worry about being seen, judged, or embarrassed. And those feelings stay with you. They shape how you understand the importance of personal boundaries. And as a high school teacher, I see those same emotions in girls that I work with today. Their concerns are real, and they deserve to be heard. Schools in England must provide single-sex toilets for pupils aged 8 and over, unless they provide single-sex cubicles with floor-to-ceiling doors and its own wash basin. Around 1 in 4 schools, 25%, have mixed-sex toilets, this being the trend in new builds and refurbishments. Typically, they have the required cubicles, but with shared hand-washing facilities. And it's these areas where girls feel understandably exposed. And why do they do it? It's because it's cheaper and easier to put all the girls and boys together in one place. But it's not better, and it's certainly not better for girls. So across the country, girls have reported sexualised bullying in these mixed-sex areas. Boys throwing sanitary products, gathering near cubicles, or making comments that leave these girls feeling unsafe. There have also been documented cases of assaults in these mixed-sex areas. The impact of this is huge. Many girls avoid using the toilet completely during the day. Some restrict water to get themselves through their lessons and through the day. Others leave early, or they stay at home altogether, particularly when they're on their period. Their reasons are consistent. The fear of boys entering the space or waiting outside, embarrassment about sanitary products, anxiety about leaks or noise, and a reduced sense of dignity. The lack of privacy can be overwhelming for them. These experiences affect attendance, concentration, achievement, and their well-being. So as we mark this anniversary, the message is clear. Protecting single-sex spaces is not about excluding anybody. It is about including the needs of girls, whose voices are too often overlooked. It is about recognising their right to safety, to dignity, and to boundaries that are respected. Safeguarding in schools is fundamental, and our girls deserve nothing less. Thank you.
Thank you, Louise. That's very powerful. I know when we do our street turfing, lots of men or girls and boys come to us and say, thank you for doing what you're doing. We hate it. We hate it. The boys hate it as well. Next is Natalie Bird. Natalie was removed as parliamentary candidate for the Lib Dem for challenging the mantra that trans women are women.
Natalie? Oh, is she? Let's hold that apparently.
Hello everyone.
I want you to go right close to mine.
I need to go closer. Yeah. Can everybody hear me? No? Hello? Yeah, is that better? Right.
Just keep yourself really close to it and
Keep
shout.
on. Okay. Thank you for having me. I want to talk about the cowardice of our politicians. Yeah? I mean, when a lot of us got into this by accident, yeah, we didn't realise at the time just how ingrained Stonewall had become with our political parties. Now, Stonewall have basically been at the core of all of these issues, yeah? We've had a Stonewall Trans Advisory Group that have basically wanted to create a nonsense of a law of self-ID, and our politicians have been basically too cowardly. They've switched off the critical thinking, they've gone along with it, they haven't stuck up for women, they haven't stuck up for children, yeah? The Lib Dems back in 2018 told feminists that they weren't welcome in any political party, they weren't welcome in the Lib Dems, whilst at the same time they were embracing the Stonewall trans activists. And you know, we've all seen Ed Davey fall over himself to say that women have penises and trans women are women. The fact that our politicians have completely switched off their brains and critical thinking on this issue and put women at risk is completely, you know, that's not what we pay them for, yeah? I mean, to Bridget Phillipson, why 1 year later, after the law, is she still telling us that we need guidance? We don't need the guidance. We need her to have a bit of a backbone and to actually apply the law. And why do we still have men in women's prisons? Why should our most vulnerable women be at risk? Because our politicians have put in useless laws that need to be repealed, yeah? What I want you to do today is I want us to actually get politics to work for women. So what I would like you to do is to ensure that you're supporting any woman that is standing for political office. There's going to be loads of women within your areas going for local councillors, so please make sure that you get out and support them, and you know that we're really behind them. We need more women in politics, yeah? There are also groups like Labour Women's Declaration, Liberal Voice for Women. We've been there from the beginning, so we need to make sure that, again, you support them, that we're there at conferences, that we show up, that we're visible. That's how we actually change things. With regard to our political parties, it's not acceptable to discriminate against women. You need to follow the law. You need to apply the law properly and not put any protected characteristic over and above another. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Oh, I don't know who this is. I don't know who this belongs to.
Yes, it's extraordinary that they're just not obeying the law. I mean, I think, that it's a kind of lawlessness that's happening now. So the next is Denise Farmy. Denise is the co-director of Freedom in the Arts. Together, Denise and Rosie Kay set up Freedom in the Arts after having been contacted by people working in the arts who had been bullied or cancelled for being gender critical. Denise herself, as I'm sure we all remember, had the same experience in 2023 when she worked at Arts Council England. Denise took the Arts Council to a tribunal, and it was the first case to test the landmark Pulsata judgment, and she won.
I don't know what this is, but it's just. I don't know what to do with it. No, don't worry about it.
Okay, thanks for having me today.
Oh, she needs. Okay, you need that.
Right, I'm going to talk about the arts. We all love it. Is that better? Yeah, okay. So in October 2023, I, together with choreographer Rosie Kay, set up Freedom in the Arts. In essence, Freedom in the Arts is an anti-bullying campaign set up by two women, Rosie and I, who lost our careers because of trans activist bullies. 2 years earlier, in October 2021, I'd only vaguely heard of Rosie Kay. She was that dancer whose company, regularly funded by Arts Council England, had found herself in a row at a dinner party, accused of transphobia in her own home. That row with 6 young dancers that she was employing was not about so-called transphobia, it was about protecting women's single-sex spaces in theatres, gyms, changing rooms, and that was for our safety and dignity. And yet Rosie went on to lose her company, her funding.
I'll hold it.
I blame
You
the
hold it,
weather.
that'd be great. You're right.
Yeah?
Didn't hit you.
Yeah?
Is it still working?
Props. Is it still working?
Yes.
Could you stand next to it? Can you hang on to it?
We're putting the leg under that statue leg. Just walk its forward.
I'm right in front of it, right. Okay, so by October 2023, I'd burnt all my bridges. I'd argued against the withdrawal of funding by the Arts Council to LGB Alliance, which should not have happened. And that had led to my colleagues getting a petition against me to have me sacked. But then I took them to a tribunal and I won. Rosie and I, we hardly knew each other when we set up Freedom in the Arts, but we knew what it was like to deal with public denunciation, cancellation. Artists' livelihoods are very precarious. Their careers across many years are played out in the public eye. The audience, making sure your work is seen, depends on a network of other artists, producers, venues. One bad, politically motivated word from a colleague or an activist can be devastating reputationally, and if you're freelance, it's very difficult to defend against the silent boycotting that is now taking place in the arts. And at the same time, the arts is quite a niche career, but it's also highly influential. It shapes public opinion, it introduces new concepts without any public consensus, and it has the social position to revise our histories. The arts has always been home to free thinkers, transgressives, edgy people, and to be fair, it always will be. But since the late 80s, the arts has focused on how it can be more accessible to more people. So less about art, more about people. We can understand that, we probably support that. But what happens when you start categorising people into particular niche groups, and then you start deciding who are your preferred target groups? And then if they're in a minority, a tiny minority, what then has happened to the democracy of the arts? Because that's what's happening now. It's beginning to look like enforced ideology. And what happens to the art itself? Does it even matter anymore? Because what we're seeing now in art is it being used as some kind of bait for identity, for political argument, for power struggles in institutions. Only a few years ago, I'm sure we'll remember, here in Manchester, Sex Matters, Maya, Helen and Emma feminist human rights organisation were literally chased out of the People's History Museum, a museum which is one of the most significant suffragette collections in the UK. Why aren't the People's History Museum here today documenting, collecting our ephemera of our movement? We are the feminists here. Why aren't they here collecting our work? Well, we know why. Those art organisations, they welcome our income tax, they welcome our council tax and our national lottery contributions, but they do not welcome us into their buildings, into their programmes as visitors or as activists in our own right, or even as artists. So in many ways, it's a tragedy what's happened in the UK art scene. It's now exclusive, censorious, it's a pious place. It's not just me and Rosie who feel that way. Last year, Freedom in the Arts surveyed nearly 500 artists and asked them what they thought was happening, what about freedom of expression in the arts. Whilst in 2020 many artists still felt able to express themselves, by 2025, 84% of people that we asked their opinions on this issue said that only sometimes, rarely or never felt free to speak publicly about their opinions. Those are artists. 84% don't speak freely. And we know what those dangerous subjects are. Gender identity, top of the list, women being chased out of the sector because they believe that sex is immutable. So in these circumstances, what do people do? What do women do? Well, normally they self-censor. They self-censor in the arts where they're supposed to be making work freely. And that's the chilling effect we're seeing in our sector. And it closes down the public square. It closes down the arts, the place where everything goes and where we should be talking about ideas. We should have diversity of opinion. Since the For Women Scotland ruling last October, we've actually seen a doubling down in our sector. A month after the ruling, the Watershed Arts Centre in Bristol launched an open letter against the then EHRC guidance. 9% of the signatories of that letter were from Arts Council funded national portfolios organisations. 92 organisations signed that letter against the law. That represented well over £17 million a year of public funding, and in fact one of the Arts Council's own staff signed a letter against UK law protecting women against discrimination. Despite this, there is still hope. We know that at Freedom in the Arts, we evidence the vast majority of artists believe that the sector has a responsibility to speak out on important issues. And many are calling for change in the industry through stronger leadership, better protections for free speech, and a culture that tolerates disagreement and represents the majority. We're bringing that demand to parliamentarians. We believe we need an inquiry into the state of freedom of expression in this country. We need to look at how art, culture and the creative industries have been instrumentalised to, in the first instance, push government agendas, but now have the free rein to instate as fact in public institutions extreme, false and divisive viewpoints held by a tiny group of people working in those institutions. That's not freedom of expression because it can't be contested. It has no democratic consensus. Freedom in the Arts has many supporters, and I guess we are, after all, a lightning rod for all those arts workers who know that a nation, a people, a democracy comprises many different opinions, and that artists should make artworks that express different political viewpoints and no viewpoint at all. Alongside living in a country that's ruled under the rule of law, which we should be doing now, it is diversity of opinion in the arts and every industry that makes for a healthy, vibrant country. Right, thank you, thank you.
Thank you, Denise. And it does seem so crazy. A place like the Arts should be somewhere where this dark and difficult stuff should be explored. I mean, Rosie Cage did the most beautiful dance and she could only get it performed in about 2 venues. It's just shocking. Next is Ellie. Ellie is a women's rights campaigner and she has been involved with lots of actions over the last few years, including the No Men in Women's Prisons protest. Today she will speak about the Supreme Court ruling and prisons.
Just let my friends here get the banners up. Thanks for the introduction, Mary. So I'm here to tell you what has happened in women's prisons since the Supreme Court ruling. Nothing, absolutely nothing. So that's my very short speech. 1 year later and women's prisons are still mixed sex. We believe there are up to a dozen men who say they're women still in women's prisons. Men in Downview, Askham Grange, Bronzefield, and most likely in Newhall and Style. So that's half of women's prisons that have men in them. The reason we don't know exactly is because the information isn't made public. It's deliberately not reported in the press. In courts, men are still referred to as women. And when transfers are happened, they occur on a case-by-case process, so confidentiality rules apply. Our government is running a system of putting men in women's prisons that is unlawful, not transparent, not accountable, and 1 year later, they are still doing it. The male estate is well equipped to look after this type of male. There are nearly 300 men who say they are women in the male estate. So why, 1 year later, is our government protecting and giving special privileges to a dozen men? Implementing the Supreme Court ruling for women's prisons would have been one of the easiest, strongest signals that the government was serious about women and girls. How easy it would have been to arrange the transport of a dozen men that are in women's prisons and put them in men's prisons where they belong. In fact, in Downview women's prisons, the men could have been walked next door to the male prison. But Keir Starmer, David Lammy, Lord Timpson haven't done this. They have done nothing. They didn't want to send the message that women matter. They didn't want to send the message that the Supreme Court mattered. They didn't want to send the message that anything would change. Very soon after the Supreme Court ruling, the Ministry of Justice did state it had commissioned a review of their transgender policy. Yet the guidance for this policy is still on their website. There is nothing to say it is under review. No one knows anything about this review, what its purpose is, who is doing the review, or who is involved. But why a review? The men just need to be removed. It is not complex. Just remove the men. Then in June, the Ministry of Justice started saying we are reviewing the policy and will set out any changes to our approach in due course. I'm not sure how long in due course is, but they were still saying that in September, and they were still saying it in November. Then in December, there was a change. But don't get excited. They basically just said, we're waiting for the guidance. So we have a Ministry of Justice who has done nothing. For 1 year, they have refused to implement the law. The lawmakers are the lawbreakers. Men are still being put in women's prisons. Women's prisons are still not single sex. The government is still acting unlawfully, and we are still saying no men in women's prisons. Thank you.
Can I have the
Oh, yes, of course. Oh, people always run off with it.
So next we have a surprise guest. Diana has come all the way. Is it Diane or Diana?
Diana.
Diana, all the way from Wales to tell us about the sorry situation there.
Thank you. I hold this?
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
I think I'm taller than this microphone. Okay. That's great.
right?
That's cracking. Thank you, sir. Good afternoon, everybody. Hello. Borodar. I've come from Wales today. I could have gone to Cardiff, but I did.
Right close to the mic.
Okay. I've come from Wales today. I could have gone to Cardiff, but I decided, no, I'm coming here to Manchester, where Welsh women are imprisoned. There is no prison in Wales for Welsh women. So they have no choice. They're arrested and convicted and sent to prison. They're coming here. They're coming to Style in Cheshire, or they're going to Eastwood Park in Gloucestershire. So currently we're talking about 150 to 250 Welsh women currently in prison in the English female estate. Every single one of them is held in England. But getting accurate figures from government sources is really tricky. Clear Welsh specific data is hard to find, and I've tried. They are sent often very far from home, from their families and communities, and from any meaningful Welsh government oversight of how they are treated. Many of these women are mothers. Most are serving very short sentences because it's all, non-violent offences like theft and shoplifting, which I'm not condoning, but I'm just saying that they go to prison far from home and they don't see their families. And I want families in Wales who may watch this, I want them to know we're here because we care about these Welsh women. What is happening is very, very wrong, and it must stop happening. The Welsh government should take responsibility for their own. That includes the current framework on transgender prison placement now, because women who come across from Wales to English prisons, okay, a small number you may think, a small number of men who reckon they're women locked up with them. But safeguarding is not about percentages, it's not about numbers. For any woman affected, the impact is absolute. We are not told which prisons hold these individuals who have been convicted of crimes, but because they've said they are women, they have gone to the female estate. It's so wrong. And Welsh families and the Welsh public are being asked to trust a system they can't properly scrutinise. This sits against changing the legal backdrop, because we need change. There has been very clear clarification on the meaning of sex in law for the Equality Act 2010, and then the Supreme Court judgment last year, a year ago. But now there is a gap between the legal principle and reality, which no government is doing anything about. We have the law, and the Labour government in England and the Labour government in Wales that have just stepped down, none of them enforce this, and we have legal rights. So politically there is a vacuum. Welsh Labour has not resolved the absence of women's prison in Wales, nor have they clarified how these risks are to be addressed, as you heard from the previous speaker. Plaid Cymru, who have ambitions to take over in the discrediting of the Labour Party, they have published a manifesto of 73 pages long. There is a small section about women's legal rights, but guess what? It doesn't talk about what happens to women who enter the prison system. It doesn't mention them at all. There are, of course, lots more paragraphs for everything to do with trans rights, which Plaid Cymru would have self-ID. So any man who rocks up in a frock will be considered a woman. This is an offence. We don't know. Who knows about the Welsh women in English prisons? We don't know if harm has become any of them. And there's no mechanism of finding this out. So sending women out of the country of Wales does not remove a duty to protect them. It only makes the failure harder to see. And we all know one victim is one victim too many. And we are here to protest against the outrage that is inflicted on all women in prison with men who reckon they are women. But I am asking you to remember here in England, in Manchester, what is happening to Welsh women. They are without voice in entirety. I thank you. Diolch. So, how did I do?
Yeah,
It's all right.
There's getting noisy now. So that's
Thank you.
Oops, a bit high for me. If you can't hear, can you just come closer? We can't do anything about the noise that's coming from over there. And please try and avoid talking when the speakers are. We're trying our best. So come closer and try not to talk until the end. That's you told. Okay, I just want to say all of that. I'm going to quote Bethany Hutchinson again when she talked about this decision to delay is causing so much harm. It's just, without the guidance for something so simple and obvious. Women's dignity and safety are seen as disposable, safeguarding is irrelevant, and our biological reality is unspeakable. I think it just comes back to that, all of this. Next person is Stella. All I know is Stella is from Lesbian Labour.
Thank you. Do I need that?
I think
Thanks for having me. So 1 year ago, the lesbian interveners stood side by side. The lesbian interveners stood with 4 Women Scotland as the judgment was handed down. Now, the arguments they made were quite important because lesbianism is a very really obvious way to highlight the absurdity of allowing men to identify into womanhood, because doing so would render the definition of lesbian as females exclusively attracted to other women absolutely meaningless. Now, in the same way that lesbians were important to the judgment has the potential to be significant to lesbians, at least in theory. The judgment clarifies once and for all what lesbian means. As the judgment states, people are not sexually attracted or oriented towards those in possession of a certificate. This should leave no question and no room for interpretation. It should allow lesbians to maintain our spaces and places with certainty, without any fear and without any risk of being sued or without the fear of being attacked for challenging anyone. However, the reality is that since the ruling a year ago, a lack of clarity and a lack of political leadership is enabling misinformation about the judgment. The law is not being applied consistently in policy or in practice. This creates confusion and emboldens and legitimizes those who seek to misrepresent the law. This lack of clarity affects lesbians in several ways. Freedom of association was mentioned specifically in the judgment as an important protection for lesbians. Lack of clarity makes it more difficult for us to challenge men in our spaces, and it makes it more likely that they will react badly to a challenge. It should not be up to individual lesbian organisations to do these challenging. This is precisely where the law should be protecting us. This is the chilling effect in action, and it perpetuates a loss of autonomy and dignity for lesbians. The lack of clarity is also contributing to difficulties in lesbian organisations accessing funding because we are not inclusive. We want it to be made much clearer that such funding decisions are in fact illegal and always have been. Reputationally, the lack of clarity does an injustice to all groups who are smeared and slandered as far-right bigots, simply for correctly applying the law. Our concerns were and are legitimate, and our ideas deserve to be recognised as worthy of respect. The issue of reputation is particularly acute for lesbians, since most of the organisations who are prominent in misrepresenting the law are the ones who purport to speak for us, while at the same time freezing us out. By continuing to delay clarification, this Labour government is undermining not only last year's judicial review judgment, but also the Equality Act itself. Political leaders such as Bridget Phillipson and David Lammy really must now lead by example. Deeds, not words. Not consultation, not review, and not more delay. For lesbians, we ask that this government prioritises publication of the EHRC guidance and clearly back it. On behalf of lesbians, we ask this government to go beyond that and show leadership by making it clear now to public and private institutions and to the general public that the law must be enacted as clarified in policy and in practice. These actions will have tangible positive impacts on the lives of lesbians. Thank you.
Thank you, Stella. That's so true, isn't it? Deeds, not words. I mean, it's the law. They just need to get on with it. Next, we have Sharon. Sharon is a founder of Lancashire Lesbian Community, exclusively created to space for homosexual females away from any man who claim to be lesbians.
Thank you. Here you go, little.
Oh.
Do you want me just to hold it?
You could stick it on. Yeah. I'll stick it on.
Hi everyone, I'm Sharon and I'm one of the admins of Lancashire Lesbians. Okay, is that better?
You need to go right close to the mic.
So I'm Sharon and I'm one of the admins for Lancashire Lesbians. So we formed Lancashire Lesbians just over 2 years ago because in our area the lesbian groups were no longer spaces for homosexual females. They only seem to care about men. We spoke to lesbians on dating apps who were endlessly worried in case their dates turned out to be men, and others attending so-called lesbian-only festivals and retreats, distraught to find themselves sharing accommodation with men. We met countless lesbians who had been ostracised from the community for being transphobic, or who were quietly withdrawn for their own safety and comfort. But the social groups that had originally been created by lesbians for lesbians just didn't seem to care. So we decided to build our own group for lesbians who refused to capitulate and who were courageous enough to say no to men. But taking this stand has come at a huge cost. We can't advertise our event publicly, and finding venues is a constant challenge. Most new members discover us through trusted networks, and every woman who joins has to be carefully vetted before we can welcome her into the group, which takes a huge amount of our time and attention. As lesbians, we're already a minority, and despite all the focus on the LGBTQ, lesbophobia has never disappeared. And now the T has just torn our community apart, making it easier than ever for lesbians to become isolated and to just fall through the cracks. And when groups like ours are forced underground, it becomes even harder to reach those women who need us the most. When the Supreme Court judgment was passed, we celebrated. It was an extraordinary achievement and an essential affirmation of sex-based rights. But on the ground, for groups like ours, very little has changed. Because when organisations simply ignore the law, or worse, shame people trying to uphold it, then nothing can change. And while politicians talk vaguely about both sides, the situation on the ground just keeps getting worse. Because like with all abusers, these men are at their most dangerous when they think we're about to escape. It is long past time for our political class to start caring about lesbians and recognising the desperate position they put us in. It is long past time for those who speak so loudly about the LGBTQ+ to remember who the L represents. Because the Supreme Court judgment confirmed that lesbians have the right to organise around same-sex orientation based on biological sex. And that right matters. It matters to us as lesbians. And we have no intention of giving that up. Thank you.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Sharon. It's just, again and again, it comes back to what is the going, I'm not going to use the word lived experience, I just did, but I won't. I'll throw that out. People's reality. It's the difference between reality and fantasy. So, Mary Curran.
Curran, is that how I say it?
Mary Curran. She's a member of Women's Rights Network, Labour Women's Declaration, and she's been working with others since 2022 to challenge Manchester City Council to protect single-sex spaces. You're a brave woman.
Thank you. And I'm also a lesbian, so we've got a hat trick of 3 on the run. Yeah, thanks. And I'm going to speak about Manchester City Council, and it's really shocking. Sorry, I'm going to speak about... Closer, right.
Right, next, you have to get right on it and shout.
I'm going to speak about Manchester City Council, and one of the things that is so shocking is that the people who are betraying us at Manchester City Council, some of them are lesbians. So, on the 2nd of February 2022, Manchester City Council passed a motion which affirmed trans women are women. Not one councillor asked a question about whether this would impact women's single-sex services. Before passing this motion, there was no equality impact assessment and no public consultation. We know that some councillors thought the motion was simply a message of support and wouldn't impact policy for women's single-sex spaces. They were wrong. The council has embedded their trans women are women affirmation in their policies so that men who identify as women can access, for example, women-only swimming sessions, women-only accommodation for homeless and vulnerable women, and women needing personal intimate care cannot be sure their carer will be a woman. The council commissioned gendered intelligence to train officers, councillors and employees. Gendered Intelligence are an extreme trans activist organisation who spread misinformation about the Equality Act and the Supreme Court ruling. Since February 2022, Kath Dyson, I and other women in Manchester Women's Rights Network have been working to challenge the City Council by engaging with councillors, the City Solicitor, the Head of EDI and a Deputy Leader through letters, meetings and social media. Their responses were a trans-inclusive organisation and an absolute refusal to consider the impact of their slogans and policies on the lives of women and girls. Shame, yes. This led us to commission a legal advice from Acua Reindorf KC, which was funded by the Women's Rights Network and Labour Women's Declaration, and was sent to the Council in July 2024. Acua Reindorf found that the Council was acting unlawfully by allowing self-ID into women's single-sex services and are in breach of their public sector equality duty. Since the Supreme Court ruling, it's even clearer that the Council are acting unlawfully, yet they haven't changed their policies. They say they're waiting for the EHRC guidance, reviewing their policies, committed to inclusion. In their messages to employees about the Supreme Court ruling, they don't even mention women or women's rights. They say Manchester City Council remains a trans-inclusive organisation. To be honest, the messages we get back from them is just word salad. It's just meaningless, inclusion. What does it mean? So we're watching them, and if they remove any women's single-sex services or spaces, we'll challenge them on the basis of sex discrimination, either direct or indirect. So what can you do? Ask your local election candidates if they support compliance with the Supreme Court ruling. Keep a check on whether your council is complying with the Supreme Court ruling, and if they're not, challenge them. Write to your councillors, go and see them in person at their surgeries, and keep a record of all communications. I mean, that was really valuable when we did the legal advice. And also follow Women's Rights Network and Labour Women's Declaration on Facebook, Twitter, whatever. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. I think it is really hard work with the councils. It's like constant sort of boring. It's not glamorous and, rainbows and all the rest of it. It's just sheer slog. So next is Emma Hilton. A wonderful biologist, fond of beetles, and a chair of Sex Matters.
What do you want me to do?
I don't know, stick it on you. Do you want me to stick it on you?
Yes. Hello. Freeze. Oh, close. Sorry. Yeah. I don't think I'm that tall. Okay. I'm going to read out a letter which was sent last week from which was sent last week from women and LGBT groups around the country. There are women reading this same letter right now in London, Edinburgh, Cardiff, Belfast and Sunderland. Dear Prime Minister, it is now almost a year since the Supreme Court confirmed that the terms man and woman in the Equality Act carry their ordinary biological meaning. The court said that any alternative interpretation would turn the definition of sex on its head and diminish protections against sex discrimination. Yet a year on, women are still waiting. We are still waiting for Bridget Phillipson to lay the Equality and Human Rights Commission's Code of Practice before Parliament. We are still waiting for the Cabinet Office to withdraw its policy telling civil servants that refusing to accept an individual's gender identity is unlawful. And we are still waiting for government departments, local authorities, NHS bodies, regulators and charities to bring their own policies in line with the law. The continued failure to act has real and damaging consequences. Public servants fear being labelled transphobic just for doing their job. NHS staff like Sandy Peggy and the Darlington nurses are being denied basic standards of dignity and privacy at work. Ordinary women are denied single-sex services, from gym changing rooms to rape crisis counselling. Some women have been excluded from public services for raising legitimate concerns. Girls are missing opportunities to participate in single-sex activities, like the boxing training, which was withdrawn by the charity the King's Trust rather than follow the law. Women in prison continue to face the presence of male prisoners in the female estate and in probation hostels, with serious implications to safety and well-being. And lesbians continue to be excluded from venues, associations and charities because they don't think men can be lesbians. Civil servants are required by the Nolan Principles to act with objectivity. That means impartiality and without bias or discrimination. But the definition of discrimination has been widely misinterpreted across the government. Government decision-making has been corrupted by this. It is harmful for everyone, including women and girls, and for people who identify as transgender,
who think they have rights they do not have. Prime Minister, you have stated that violence against women and girls is a national emergency and that tackling it is a test of our values. Here is one thing you can do right now. Apply the law that underpins women's safety, dignity and equality. Ordinary women standing up for themselves and small organisations like For Women Scotland, like Sex Matters, like the LGB Alliance and the other lesbian interveners did something amazing last year. They won back clarity about the law, but now the government must provide leadership to ensure that the law is followed. The government must act now, and we are calling on Bridget Phillipson to produce the guidance, and we're calling on Keir Starmer to tell the civil service to apply the law, because women's rights won't wait.
Thank you, Emma, and for all the amazing work that Sex Matters does, because sex does matter, as we know. Last, our special guest is Claire. We got Claire. So Claire Fox, Baroness Fox of Buckley, member of the House of Lords, from Living Marxism, founder to, I remember when many years ago, her on the Moral Maze. Founder of the Academy of Ideas and the Extraordinary Battle of Ideas, a tireless and powerful voice with deep integrity about the harms of gender ideology, and she champions free speech in her every fibre.
I've been told I have to snog the mic. I said, it's been a while since I've snogged. Anyway. I remember a year ago, the night before the Supreme Court verdict, I couldn't sleep. I couldn't sleep because I kept thinking, what if they lose? What if we lose? Now, if I was scared and I had nothing to do with it, can you imagine what it was like to be For Women Scotland? The fear, the terror, that you started something that might lose in the glare of publicity with so much at stake. And I say that because although they won, they might not have won. It was a court. So I would just like to say that it took incredible courage and bravery by Marion, Susan and Trinity. Can you imagine what it felt like to be them? And I couldn't have done it. And I just want to say we should give them a big cheer. You see, we might have thought that if the highest court in the land, in law, agrees with us, that we would be okay. I know there was a great celebrations and we were right to celebrate. But I think we've learned some lessons since then, haven't we? One lesson we've learned is that lawfare and the courts may help us, but they're not sufficient, they're not our saviours. We've also learned that actually it's grassroots campaigns that both tirelessly got us to the Supreme Court, because For Women Scotland were just that, but that actually we can't rely on the courts and law to deliver equality for women. Imagine having to say that in 2026, but it's true. We thought that the Supreme Court and its clarification that, and the idea that you have to go to court to be told that a woman is actually based on biological sex. The idea that you need a court to tell you what you already knew, but nonetheless, they agreed with us. Few, right? But we then thought that gender ideology would wither on the vine. But we were wrong. We were very wrong, and I'm afraid that's a hard lesson to learn. Now, I don't want to be overly pessimistic. It's been damaged. It's been exposed. We're up against, though, maybe different opponents than the simply obsessive trans activists. And so I just want to look at who we're up against. We're up against institutions that are crawling with equality, diversity and inclusion, trans inclusion, that's ingrained in every orifice of those organisations. We're up against institutional corruption. Institutions like universities, councils, arts organisations, the media, and we've heard brilliant speeches from so many of those institutions, what's happening in prisons, what's happening in sport and so on. But those institutions are so far removed from their core purpose. It's a much deeper problem even than the trans issue. They're so far removed from their core purpose that they leap on fashionable causes to give them a sense of mission. So you've got the NHS. They can't sort out waiting lists. They can't sort out staffing. They can't make the ill well too often. But every bit of energy and enthusiasm they've got goes into a hard and purposeful stamping down on the rights of their own frontline staff, like the Darlington nurses, Jennifer Melee and Sandy Peggy, because they think they can sort that bit out. And the lesson I've taken from the Lords is that we're up against not, as I say, the trans activists, but the political cowards. Because yes, there are some MPs and peers who are ideologues, who really believe this nonsense, who really do not know what a woman is. There are some of them, but they're a minority. And by the way, if you read the manifestos of the Green Party and Plaid Cymru, it scared the life out of you. I mean, they make the SNP look like moderates. But most parliamentarians that I talk to know that this has been an attack on women's rights, and they agree with us. But they're not here, are they? They're not here because they're not brave. Understatement. They're scared of backbench rebellions. They're scared that people will think that they're not progressive and liberal and nice. They self-righteously, endlessly, and I mean bloody endlessly, stand up and give speeches about violence against women and girls. And I should cheer them, but I can't, because I know that when it comes to the hard issues, they're silent. They're silent when it comes to women being exposed to men in single-sex spaces. They're silent when it comes to things like the grooming gangs. There are certain women that they're not prepared to defend. And that means that all their self-righteousness in relation to their feminist speeches about violence against women and girls means nothing to me. They've got to be consistent. So many people, when I do speak in Parliament, will come up to me afterwards, it appears, and they'll squeeze my arm and whisper, "I agree with you." But they're mute in public. They let Bridget Phillipson get away with excuses, stalling, misinformation about the AHRC guidance and why they won't release it. This is a weak government that hopes for dynamism, and it looks for dynamism, and the times I've seen in the House of Lords the most enthusiasm is when they were talking about bringing in enhanced hate crime legislation to protect vulnerable transgender people. That was the time when the minister got most aggravated and passionate and said, "We are for justice." And you really did think, you put that much energy into, as Justice Minister, as Home Office, into solving crimes in this country, you might get somewhere. But no, that was what got him going. It's a disgrace, it really is. And I'm worried because they also think they're going to get some dynamism out of bringing in conversion therapy anytime soon, something we've all got to be really frightened about. But the worst crime that I would accuse our new opponents of is that they make out that those of us making a fuss revel in the culture wars. They make out that we like standing out here on a Saturday afternoon because we've got nothing better to do. They think we like being troublemakers. They think, oh, they're just extremists. They even call us far right. It's ridiculous demonisation of people in the way that they do. They think that we enjoy cancel culture, that we do it for attention. Listen, Stonewall had the slogan "No debate," but at least we knew where we stood. The worst thing about the others lot is they tell us to hush, to pipe down. In a way, it's worse. They tell us to watch our tone, watch our language, that we should accommodate, we should be consensual, that we should be moderate, that we should be inclusive. In other words, they try and compel our speech, to force us to speak in bad faith, to say what we know is not true. And what we know is true is that we have not yet won. We're not just moaning about the guidance. We know that until that guidance is in place, every corrupt institution will ignore it. Every trade union will use it as an excuse. All of the organisations that we all fought, certainly people like me, I never thought that I would be denouncing trade unions. But trade unions have betrayed and denounced us. And so we have to denounce back. What we need to do is to use our free speech, the most precious and valuable of our commodities, to speak loudly, bottom up, not top down, bottom up. We need to shake down and shake the foundations of all those NGOs, charities, public sector, corporate, HR departments. All of those people have got to feel our wrath. That's what we're doing here today. So we're back here 1 year later, and we're back, and we will be back, and we're going nowhere until we get what we rightly deserve. It's not the world to say we as women should be treated as women. I mean, who'd have thought that was a revolutionary bloody demand? It is absolutely essential that we use our free speech to make a fuss and to shout loudly, as women up and down this country are doing today, at protests like this all over the place and throughout Europe, as we heard, organised by grassroots organisations. And by the way, if I can just say something on grassroots, there are very well-known organisations like Sex Matters, like the LGB Alliance, like the Women's Rights Network, and that's brilliant. But there's hundreds of small, tiny, nobody's heard of, names of organisations, many of you here today. And it's what matters is that we're a collective of people who come together, who might argue over a million things, won't agree on everything politically, but on this we can all come together. And we're like a jigsaw puzzle, and we all fit together, and we then become the whole picture. And we've got to use our free speech to say, as this slogan is, tick, tock, tick, tock, tick, tock, tick, tock, tick, tock, tick, tock, tick, tock. Your time is running out, establishment. We are not having it any longer. And I am proud to be here with you today. It's been a great success. Thanks to the organisers. Brilliant. Oh my God. I had it in my hand. Got loads of it.
Okay, so I don't know what to say. I feel really moved by that, actually. It's just so true. And the conversion therapy is very worrying. It's just clamping down, stopping people thinking about this. That's what's happened with people have stopped thinking. So I just want to say thank you, everybody, for coming today. Thanks for Molly for saving us with the mic. And thanks for the peerless organisation, other than the last minute sound stuff. It reminds me, I grew up in the country, it reminds me of what the WI used to be. You know, these farming women that just got shit together. You know, that's the WI I know. So I just want to thank it, and JD and the WRN and Kath, who couldn't be here, but she was just organising stuff and many spreadsheets and lots of thinking and working out. So thanks everybody for coming. And was there anything else I wanted to say? Oh, we're going to sing a song. And then actually, if we could, those of you who don't mind your picture, we were going to try and get a picture with everybody standing behind the statue. But let's just do our song. Yeah. Do you want to hold that?
Yeah.
Okay. Do we get the right? Oh, God. Okay, should we get this?
Yeah.
Right, okay. Come, Mandy.
Where do you want the words?
Where do you want the words? Okay.
Okay.
Okay. We stand together side by side. We will defend our rights. We stand together side by side. We'll not give up this fight. For women's rights are human rights. We won't let you forget. For women's rights are human rights. This isn't over yet. Politicians and their friends may think we can be cowed. Our minds and bodies will defend. No, no, will ring out loud. For women's rights are human rights. We won't let you forget. For women's rights are human rights. This isn't over yet. So give us a hand in sisterhood. Our sex won't be denied. For dignity, reality, we are standing side by side. For women's rights are human rights. We won't let you forget. For women's rights are human rights. This isn't over yet.
And to all our brothers and sisters in Paris, Vienna, Dusseldorf and Berlin. Photo. Over here. Get over here.